welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Rewatch Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 090 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from October 16th, 1993, taped Parade of Champions weekend in Barberville, Kentucky, Johnson City, Tennessee, and Knoxville, Tennessee. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Darryl Van Horne to my Dr. Dirty Dutch Mantell. It's Trae. Trae, how the hell are you doing?
What's happening? That was I was trying to think of a line. Darryl Van Horne had some really ridiculous lines of this. Oh, his lawyer from Libido and Cleavage that's so good that once got a sodomy charge busted down to tailgating.
Yes, it's a tremendous line here by Darryl Van Horne, and we got a lot of them this week because this week we are randomly just playing clips from Parade of Champions weekend. You know, what the hell? I mean, I
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah,
Why not?
it's a fun show nonetheless, you know. Hey, they spend so much time building up these shows. They happen and we never hear about them, sometimes. So I guess it's nice that hey, we're gonna get to see some of the matches and some of the things that happened on these shows.
Yeah.
Now, last week, I mentioned that I say this show was a direct violation of kayfabe. Um And do you want to know why? Or actually, not so
Why?
much a direct violation of kayfabe. This exposed the business because, there's a couple times, the Candido Bobby Blayze thing. We're gonna see them wrestle four times. But looking at these other matches, like let's say you went to one of the towns. Let's say you went to Johnson City, Tennessee, and you saw Killer Kyle versus the Bullet. Um, Actually, that's a bad example because that's the match we saw. Wow. Okay. My point is they did the exact same matches with the exact same finishes for the vast majority of the matches on each of the four shows. So if you went to any one of the cities and you came in on and watched this show, you saw the exact same match you did just somewhere else with the exact same finish. And
Okay.
to me, that's the oh goddamn, you're exposing the business bullshit that, everyone fucking knows the shit's fake. But, we gotta pretend that somehow people in the South are too fucking stupid to know better.
Okay. So the only matches that they showed more than one of the same match was Candido and Bobby Blayze. They showed
Yeah.
three different matches, and they were all different finishes.
Yes. But
Okay,
like everything else, like Dirty White Boy versus Tim Horner, we saw the Barberville match. Well, they had the exact same match in Johnson City. They had the exact same match in Knoxville, and they had the exact same match in the fourth town that, you know, got no love because we didn't show anything from that show.
Hazard, Kentucky.
Yes, Hazard. I mean nobody loves Hazard, Kentucky, so why should Smoky Mountain?
But you didn't see the Johnson City match. You don't know that they did the same finish,
I've read the results. I read
did
the
you?
uh, I read the Observer that week. And you basically said that with the exception of that and the main event, because the Steiners Heavenly Bodies match, they did 2-2, according to Dave, even though the results seem to indicate 3-1. But just basically everything but those two matches, they were the exact same match up and down the card.
Oh, okay, this was the show that ruined kayfabe.
Yep, exposing the business here. Although I guess if we are going to assume that fans in the South are too stupid to know that wrestling isn't fake, they might be too stupid to realize that we saw the exact same match in multiple locations.
Maybe they
Actually,
can't tell
it's
the difference.
actually it's funny because I went to a WWF house show when I was a kid in 1992, and there was a match between High Energy and not the Bushwhackers, but the Beverly Brothers, and they did the exact same finish, well, they did a finish where like somebody did a small package in the ring. The Beverly came in and rolled it over, and then whatever high energy member it was came in and rolled it back over. And then a week later on Primetime Wrestling, they aired a match with that finish. And I thought, oh my God, that was the show we were at, even though it's painfully obvious it was not at the show I was at. And I had to be informed that no, we were not at a show that was in a full major arena. We were in a show in a civic center in front of 1,000 people. And that was when I got beat over the head with, wrestling not being real.
Is that when you got
Um,
smartened up?
I mean, it's funny because like I was already smartened up because even before I watched wrestling, like the one thing I knew was pro wrestling is fake because I just
Yeah.
heard that over and over again.
Yeah,
By
me
the
too. I
by the
was,
way, I noted at least my theory as to why this show is a highlight show, and this is going to be a callback to what we discussed last week. I wrote that since this show is preempted for UK football, we're getting a highlight show this week. And last week when It took it took Trey, the non-sports fan, to tell me, the sports fan, that UK football did not refer to England, but instead the University of Kentucky. I still
that
can't
was
believe
really
looking back
funny.
that yeah, I still can't believe you knew that and I didn't, or that you put two and two together and I didn't. I'm sitting here like
Yeah.
looking up looking up NFL Europe schedules. I'm looking up soccer matches, and you're like, dude, it's the University of Kentucky. I'm like, oh God damn it. Oh Lord. I'm a genius sometimes, don't you know?
Mhm.
So, uh, hey, guess who's back? Bob Caudle's back.
Yay.
And yep, let's okay, I'm gonna play the intro, then I'm gonna read you what I wrote and why I was confused for a second, because I swear to God, I'm smart. I swear to God, I'm smart. But let's play the intro of the show first.
Welcome to another exciting, action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Professional wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. Hi, wrestling fans. I'm Bob Caudle right here along with Dr. Dirty Dutch Mantell. And have we got a great hour in store for all you wrestling fans this week? Dutch, it's a little bit different this week. We're going to go back and look at a special parade of champions. We're going to recap that today. We're going to see highlights of the Bobby Blayze Chris Candido match, the Dirty White Boy against Tim Horner, the Steiners against the Heavenly Bodies. We'll have some action from that. The Bullet against Killer Kyle. The Rock and Roll Express are going to take on the Armstrongs. The Dirty White Boy and more right here. And Smoky Mountain Wrestling has announced the dates also for this year's second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour. Fans, that's going to be November 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th in Hazard, Kentucky, Knoxville, Barberville, and Johnson City. Also, Dutch, we're going to hear from Jim Cornette.
Wait a minute, Caudle. You flipped your poorly fitted wig if you think I'm going to let you sit out here and tell everybody what's going on. I'm here to cast pearls before swine right now and let the world know what's going on in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, seeing as how I'm the man that's going to change it. I'm bringing in the Egyptian prince. I've returned from the University of Cairo, and I have a man who stands 7 feet tall, 350 pounds. He's a Renaissance man. He's going to change everything here.
Dutch, who is this?
You haven't met Mr.
No,
Van
I
Horne?
have not.
Well,
I have
Bob,
not.
while you were gone, Mr. Van Horne made his presence known here, and I think you should talk to him. I think you'd like him.
You think I will?
Yes, I know
Well,
you'd like
if
him.
you like him, I don't think I will, Dutch. Fans, don't go away. We're going to be back right after this.
All right. So, a nice random trio to talk about the show this week. Bob Caudle, Dutch Mantell, and Darryl Van Horne, which,
And
hey,
Bob just didn't know who Darryl Van Horne was, which means Bob didn't watch the show while he was gone.
no, no, he didn't. I had to laugh that Thanksgiving Thunder weekend is in the exact same location as the Parade of Champions weekend. So if you live
Yeah.
anywhere else, too fucking bad. You're not getting a big show.
Hey,
Um,
look, the people who live in Barberville, Kentucky, they don't have a whole lot going on with them. Let them have some Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I was gonna say they don't have a lot going on. So we give them a big Smoky Mountain show every so often.
Mhm.
So my notes said it's the return of Bob Caudle. Today we're looking at POC. And For a second, I'm like, today we're looking at people of color. Oh Lord. I swear I'm not drunk, people. I'm not drunk. Um, so last week the Egyptian prince was almost 7 feet tall, and this week he is 7 feet tall. Poor bastard is just still growing at whatever age he is.
No, they just keep wrapping stuff around him, making him taller. Do we know that he's a mummy yet?
No, spoiler alert. We just know he's the
Oh,
Egyptian prince.
okay. Well, he is an Egyptian prince, but he's a long dead Egyptian prince.
So here's a question for you. You know, because Cornette's working with the WWF at this point, and Cornette likes to think of gimmicks that can work with gimmicks in the WWF. Do you think that even though this was what's his name's idea, that
Rick
Cornette,
Rubin.
yeah, that it was Rick Rubin's idea, that Cornette was thinking, hey, maybe this guy could work with Undertaker someday.
Man, that's that should have been a WrestleMania match. That should have been part of the streak. The Undertaker
The Under
versus Prince Karras.
Would that have been any worse than some of these early streak matches? Because again,
No.
Undertaker took on the aging Jimmy Snuka, Jake Roberts, who was quitting the company, the Giant Gonzalez, King Kong Bundy, Big Boss Man in a Hell in a Cell match. Oh, and he took on Sid in the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, you
Uh,
left out Diesel.
Diesel match I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to go back and rewatch it, um, but the funny thing is, like, I used to have a weekly poker game I'd play at, and anytime I needed to get my poker face on, I thought about Undertaker versus Sid in the main event of WrestleMania.
Because it made you feel just nothing.
Yes. It made me think about all the people who've never had a match at WrestleMania, and Sid got to main event twice. Twice.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's go to our eclectic trio as they're going to give us a recap of the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title situation.
The United States Junior Heavyweight title bounced around like a ping pong ball at the Parade of Champions. Chris Candido had won it just a few days earlier. Then it went to Bobby Blayze, then Candido, then to Blayze. Candido had promised that he'd throw the belt in the river if he won it, but he didn't have it long enough.
Wait a minute, Caudle, wait a minute. We have a visitor with us today, and I see you haven't changed a bit. Mr. Horne, Mr. Van Horne, let me ask you, what do you think of Bobby Blayze?
Well, I like Bobby Blayze, but then again, I like leukemia. No, actually, the thing is this. The man's an idiot. He's so stupid he went to Las Vegas and stood in front of the roulette wheel trying to buy a vowel all night. He's a clown.
Fans, let's watch it right here.
What did poor Bobby Blayze do to Darryl Van Horne?
No, I'm just imagining Bobby Blaze's Vegas vacation.
Maybe if and when I go to Vegas for WrestleMania, I can take a picture of myself in front of a roulette wheel trying to buy a vowel.
There you go.
Actually, I don't know. Have you been to many casinos or any casinos, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, fair few.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if maybe this is just a New England thing, but a few months ago when I went to Mohegan Sun for a John Mulaney concert, I stuck around and did some gambling afterwards, and I got told off for having my phone out at the roulette table. I had to put it away.
See, in the South, the casinos are all set up so your phone doesn't work inside because they don't want you to
Interesting.
remember that you have a family or anything.
The damn South. I thought the South will rise again or whatever Tracy would scream at us.
No, not if the casino owners have anything to say about it.
So Knoxville, we're going to throw all the Candido Blayze matches. In Knoxville, Blayze blocks the Suicide Plex and wins the match and title with a sunset flip off the top rope. We moved to Barberville, where Candido did a springboard crossbody to the outside and Blayze moved, so Candido crashed and burned on the guardrail. Despite that, Candido almost immediately pins him in the ring after running Blayze into the turnbuckle. And then in Johnson City, where there was a ton of empty seats right on camera, Blayze won with a small package. And this title changes hands more than the WCW title did in the year 2000.
Well, you know, it actually doesn't. The entire
And
history of the entire history of the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title isn't as many title changes as the WCW title in 2000.
yes, but to be fair, also this title, we've pretty much discussed the entire history of the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title already.
Pretty
Um,
much, yeah.
yeah,
You think that this was just a parade of champions? We got to have at least one more
yeah.
belt. Was that the genesis of the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title?
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know where this title came from because I'd like to think that Cornette, who never even had any sort of trophy to represent the TV title, didn't just have another title belt made for a weekend of house shows.
Do you think that Mike Jackson was in that tournament in Columbus? He'd
Well, I
have to
mean,
be right because he's.
Jushin Liger was in there, so why not?
I mean,
You
he's
know?
the Alabama Junior Heavyweight champion. How could he
Yes.
not be in the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title tournament?
I
I bet that'd be a barn burner. Jushin Thunder Liger and Mike Jackson.
I bet it would have been. In all seriousness, I would have enjoyed to watch those two wrestle. I've tried to ask Cornette a couple times if the Alabama junior heavyweight title was a real thing or if that was just something they said to try to give Mike Jackson a little bit of credibility. Because like he was always being introduced as the Alabama junior heavyweight champion. He never had a belt. He never defended the Alabama junior heavyweight title. He just was the Alabama junior heavyweight champion, and then he just stopped appearing on TV.
As far
Um,
as we know, he still is the Alabama Junior Heavyweight champion.
yeah. So we find out that Bobby Blayze and Chris Candido are going to square off for the title next week, and Darryl Van Horne informs us that the Egyptian Prince is going to go for every title here in Smoky Mountain. And I took that as meaning he's also going for the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title, which makes sense because they never announce a weight limit.
He the Mummy can just like take a leg off if he needs
Yeah. Oh
to
yeah.
make weight.
Like you would think that UFC fighters would do that. You see people in like steam rooms and all this shit. It's like, nah, just like remove a body part. Don't that doesn't it grow back if you remove a body part?
Not for humans. If you're a
God
starfish, you're
damn
thinking
it.
about starfish.
Ah, yes.
You
Yes,
mixed
yes.
up starfish and people again.
Like I regularly do.
Yeah.
Um, so Mr. Van Horn does not care who the number one contender is, but we still have to watch the Tim Horner match. Um, Dirty White Boy versus Tim Horner for the number one contendership in Barberville, Kentucky. Not sure what Horner has done to become the number two contender to the title. Brian Matthews, who's on commentary, spoke about 3,000 words per minute. White Boy reversed the natural bridge and grabbed a handful of tights for the win. This man is still a heel, Trey.
Horner Horner did like a handspring kick into the corner,
Mhm.
and Brian Matthews said it was a Jushin Thunder Liger like move.
We're just trying to
And then
drop
it's
Liger as many times as possible on this show.
well, Liger is a better wrestler than Tim Horner. Is that too controversial a statement?
Jushin Liger cuts better English promos than Tim Horner.
That's true. Actually, it'd be a great match, Jushin Thunder Liger against the Dirty White Boy.
Bet that would have been a good match.
I want to know what I want to know what Mr. Ron Wright would think of Jushin Thunder Liger.
I tell you what, I wonder what Mr. Ron Wright would think of Officer Jushin Liger.
Officer Jushin Liger. I don't even
Yes,
remember that.
don't you remember like I guess this might have been before the pandemic. Before all the New Japan shows, they would like air those videos ad nauseum, and
Oh
one of them
yeah, that
was
thing.
yes. All right, well, while Trey and I remember the good old days of Jushin Liger getting a job as a police officer, let's go to a Dirty White Boy promo.
All right, fans, that match between the Dirty White Boy and number one contender for the Heavyweight Championship, White Lightning Tim Horner. All right, after that win, what does that do to the ranking of the White Boy?
Well, what that does to the ranking for the White Boy is that makes me the number one contender for the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight title. And you know, I don't like Primetime Brian Lee and Miss Tammy Fetch. I don't like her either, so I guess what I'm going to have to do is just beat Brian Lee, take the title back, run him out of town, and that way I can get my manager Ron Wright back.
What about Tracy Smothers now, White Boy? You know, he doesn't like Primetime Brian Lee. You don't like Primetime Brian Lee. Does that mean something going between you and Tracy Smothers?
That means absolutely nothing. We have nothing in common as far as Tracy Smothers is concerned. He's just somebody else standing in my way after the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight title. And if my poor old sweet mama was standing between me and Primetime Brian Lee, I'd have to backhand her. Brian Lee, I'm coming after that heavyweight title, and I'm coming to get my manager back. Bottom line.
All right, fans, that's the story right there from the Dirty White Boy. We'll be back right after this.
I don't know about you, but I'm impressed that by winning this number one contender match, that Dirty White Boy is now the number one contender.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't backhand my mama for the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Heavyweight title.
I mean, if you have a good relationship with your mama, that might be a bad idea. But if you don't, that may not be awful. I still probably wouldn't recommend it, but still.
Yeah,
Um,
guess not everybody
I,
had my mama.
I like that Caudle, and I guess this is what happens when you give the guy a month off. But Caudle was grimacing when White Boy threatened to backhand his mama.
Yeah, great to have
But
Bob back.
yes. By the way, you know what I thought about during that promo? Jushin
But
Liger retired, and then the pandemic happened. Do you think one had
yeah,
something to do with the other?
I'm just really scared because next January Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to retire, and the very fabric of reality may unravel.
I mean, who else is going to pull a coup over and start a new government in the country of Japan? But if not for the president of New Japan,
You think he can become president of the United States as well?
I don't think that's very difficult these days.
You think they could wrestle for it? Trump and Tanahashi
I would like to see Tana stretch Trump.
in a hair versus hair match.
The problem with that is I'd be afraid that Tana might lose that tremendous head of hair that he has.
Tana's not going to lose.
So if New Japan is a political coup that they're creating a brand new country of Japan, does that make all Japan the original country of Japan?
Yeah, all of it.
Okay. This is the kind of riveting conversation you get by listening to this wrestling show.
Yeah, you can't get this anywhere else, folks.
I guarantee that there's no other podcast out there that will discuss Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Donald Trump in a hair versus hair match.
During a Smoky Mountain Wrestling review.
Yes, yes. Literally no other show exists like this in the universe.
No,
And that might be a good thing for more than one reason.
it's probably for the best.
Um, so Dutch Mantell was asleep um, while Bob Caudle was pitching into the Smoky Mountain title match, and Darryl Van Horne had to accidentally fall into him to wake him up.
Yes.
Poor, poor, poor Dutch. I honestly, by the end of this show, I want to see Darryl Van Horne as a regular third member of the commentary team.
Yeah.
Oh my God, can you imagine picking the challenger up for Beat the Champ, but they use his fez instead of Dutch's hat?
Oh, yeah. Why is that not the thing immediately?
Yes. Like we like Coddle and everything, but he can take another month off. We don't mind.
Well, no, do Coddle and Darryl Van Horn.
Not like take Dutch off entirely.
He can buy his Tammy's Tips time slot back and do Down and Dirty.
There you go. Sadly, we don't get Tammy's tips this week.
Oh,
Again, that's tips with a P. So we'll have to wait for next week for Margie to try to pop Tammy again.
love Margie.
Um, yes. But by the way, speaking of Margie, I mentioned I was I think I sent this to you. I found the Smoky Mountain newsletter that got put out, and I sent you like a screenshot of an angry Tim Horner letter from the
Yeah.
last issue where he blamed Jim Cornette for everything. And reading through that thing, they had a Margie was sending in results from Smoky Mountain house shows, and I was like, "Huh, do you think that's Margie? Margie? Tammy Fitch's Margie?"
I hope so. I would think so.
I mean, how many Margies are there, right? You know,
17.
17 sounds about right. Um, we may have to read that Tim Horner letter now that I've mentioned it. But before we do that here, might as well talk about some more of the show here. So we go to Knoxville, Tennessee for Primetime Brian Lee with Tammy Witch versus Tracy Smothers with Sensational Sherri for the Smoky Mountain title. And the very first thing we hear when we go to this video is Sherri calling Tammy a bitch. So much for that whole Tammy Witch with a capital B thing. It's like that time on AEW when John Moxley told a fan to go fuck himself, and Jericho started telling people GFY because it was so edgy. Um,
You mean Kopi
huh?
instead of edgy, it's Kopi now.
Pop. Wow. Okay, so
Again,
Tammy
you don't
trips
get this
Tracy in
anywhere
the
else.
first. Yes. Tammy trips Tracy in the first few seconds, so Sherri trips primetime Brian Lee. Tracy hits a jaw jacker, but Tammy puts Brian Lee's foot on the ropes. Mark Curtis was weirdly distracted for some reason, so Tammy threw the purse in. Sherri attempted to murder Tammy. Primetime Brian Lee got hairspray in his hand and sprayed it in Tracy's face and then rolled him up for the win. After the match, Sherri jumps on Brian's back, so Brian tosses her off, and Tracy makes the save, and then they both punch Brian Lee until Brian Lee slithers to the back.
Sherry threw a hell of a punch. It's Brian Lee.
Yes, it was the best punch on the show, if I do say so myself.
It was. It was.
Yes. Um, but yeah, it was so I mean, we've mentioned this before, but I think we're pretty much coming to the end of the Tracy Smothers quest for the Smoky Mountain title because at this point, if they were to you know if they were to keep going to it, like what could you even do as a match at this point? Because you've done the gimmick matches, you've done the bring in somebody to take out Tammy Fitch thing. At this point, like unless you do the chicken wire cage match And even that, I imagine they'd probably find a way to do a screw job there too. There really isn't a whole lot more you could do to keep this going, I don't think.
Yeah, he's defended the title against Tracy an awful lot of times.
I mean, this has been going on since what, May?
Uh, so the uh since about June, July.
Yeah, because I guess because the TV title thing, because that was when Primetime Riley became the first person to retire as TV champion. And for
Hmm.
some reason, Tracy was there and took all of his promo time. And that led to Primetime Riley turning heel and then winning the title.
Yeah, that was a dick move
Yes,
for
it
Tracy
was.
for stealing his interview
Especially,
time.
yep. All right. So, Primetime Brian Lee is still your Smoky Mountain champion. Let's hear what he has to say for some reason.
Well, fans, as you saw, Tracy Smothers not very happy about the fact that Primetime Brian Lee is still the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. But Brian, the Dirty White Boy, says that he has earned the shot at that title.
Dirty White Boy says he's earned a shot at the title. I'm the one that says you get a shot at the title, Dirty White Boy. You're just like Tracy Smothers. You ought to be picking tobacco and riding a tractor somewhere and get out of professional wrestling. And I tell you what, maybe one day if I have 5 or 10 minutes, I might give you a shot. But right now I have bigger fish to fry.
What about it, Miss Fitch?
Look at the new dress Ronnie bought me. Isn't it beautiful? He's showing his gratitude because we're taking such good care of him. We brought him into our home. We're feeding him. We're clothing him because the Dirty White Boy just couldn't do the job. And he bought me this dress. He bought me this Rolex. And we put that away. And last night, I was sitting on Tiger's lap, and he told me he's just about to call the lawyer and sign those adoption papers so I can become part of the family.
That's going to be so nice having Miss Fitch as one of my own daughters in my own family. I'm going to really looking forward to this.
Tammy's he gonna sign the will too?
Just shut up. We'll talk about that later. Tiger, it's time for your next dose of medicine. Let's go.
Fans, whew, we'll be right back.
I love this fucking angle. Now they're bringing up the will. Like, oh boy, they're taking advantage of this poor old man in a wheelchair. Uh, giving him his medicine, not letting him talk to the dirty white boy, all that fun, happy shit. And it's building. Something's coming, you know.
I don't like what they're doing to Mr. Ron Wright.
Neither do I. Like this is, they're just some awful people. Mr. Wright is such a nice, kind man, and they're taking advantage of him. They're using his credit card to buy a new dress, and they're uh he's going to adopt Tammy Fitch. I love that. You know.
She is a
Although
witch with a capital B.
at this point though, it's like, if you combine storyline with real life shit, you think Mr. Ron Wright would have put her over his knee during all of her DUI shit?
Well, somebody needed to.
Yeah. Maybe that's how she got the car. Maybe she still has Ronnie's credit card.
Oh dear.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Um, so yeah. So Tammy tells Brian Lee to shut up and to put the credit card away, and just to tell you, I've been talking about this for a while. The greatest moment in Smoky Mountain Wrestling history is 2 weeks away. Two
Okay.
weeks away.
I can't wait.
Yep. We then go to Killer Kyle versus the Bullet from Johnson City, Tennessee. Cornette set up a table outside the ring to Irish whip the Bullet over. And of course, Cornette is a pussy, so he can't do such a thing. So the Bullet reversed it, and Cornette went careening over the table. Um, Bullet wins with a schoolboy after Cornette tried throwing his racket in. After the match, Kyle and Cornette double team Bullet. Kyle gets the mask off, but Bullet had his head down and covered. The Rock and Roll Express made the save, and Gibson put a towel over the Bullet's head. I, man, oh man, I don't know who this Bullet guy is, Trey. We
He sure
almost
was
found out.
lucky. He sure was
Yes.
lucky that his friends was there with the towel.
And I got to say, we're not having it's not a good time to be poor Bob Armstrong because spoiler for the next TNA show, Bullet Bob Armstrong goes on assignment, and he never returns to TNA.
But well,
And
it's a long
yeah,
assignment.
yep, and now he's not able to return to his job as Smoky Mountain Commissioner. He has to send his good friend the Bullet in to wrestle for him. I don't know. Poor Bob Armstrong. This is getting almost as bad as Death Week 2025, which is next week, where Kurt Hennig dies on one show and David Von Erich dies on the other show.
That's gonna be rough.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's even rougher. Have you watched next week's shows yet?
No.
Oh boy. Yeah. Keep in mind as you're watching it that in real life, David Von Erich is dead, and they've recorded this show a week and a half in advance.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So back to Smoky Mountain, Dutch asks Darryl about Jim Cornette, who says that he's a great mind, but he's also the first throat that Darryl Van Horne has to cut.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, those two will not have an on-screen rivalry at all. However,
Darn.
when Darryl pulls a Paul Heyman and goes into business for himself, they'll have a behind the scenes fight.
That's a
But that's a
shame that
few months away.
we're not gonna get the Mummy against Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey.
Oh my God. Can you imagine Jimmy Del Rey teaching the Mummy how to do the swivel?
Oh, oh! I swear, if we had been around then to give these ideas, Smoky Mountain Wrestling would still be alive.
Dr. Tom could teach him how to fluff his hair.
Yeah,
There you go. Jim Cornette, like I obviously you're listening to our show because why wouldn't you? You need to relaunch Smoky Mountain Wrestling so we can bring these ideas to the forefront.
yeah,
Is Rick Rubin
absolutely.
still alive?
I don't know. We'll have to
Dear
find
Rick
out.
Rubin, dear Rick Rubin, can you
Art,
please fund our wrestling company so we can do absurd shit involving mummies on our TV?
dear Rick
He's only
Rubin, are you still alive? If so,
Rick Rubin is only 61 years old.
oh, oh wow.
I Yeah, he's always looked much older than he is.
Hmm.
But speaking of people who always looked older, J.J. Dillon is on TNA next week, and he looks exactly the same as he did in the 80s, just because he's always looked like an old man.
Yeah, he did. He looked like he was like in his 60s and the 80s.
Yeah. We go to Johnson City for the Rock and Roll Express versus Scott and Steve Armstrong, and we were having a nice, clean pro wrestling match when the Heavenly Bodies ran down and stole Ricky Morton and Steve Armstrong. I just mean Robert Gibson and Scott Armstrong are fighting in the ring, and suddenly Morton and Steve just disappear. Um, Gibson and Scott go to try to find their partners and get them back, and referee Mark Callis counts them both out. Why did I call him Mark Callis? That's not important. But um, the Heavenly Bodies beat the count of 12, and you might recall that the Heavenly Bodies are not in the match, but for some reason they ran back down to the ring and rolled into the ring at this point. The Rock and Rolls and the Armstrongs followed them in and ran them off. Makes you kind of wonder in kayfabe, why did everybody go back to the ring?
Well, the Heavenly Bodies because they won a moral victory, and then I don't know.
Okay.
I also caught the Mark Callis.
Okay. Did what's his name call him that?
That's what it sounded like.
Okay. So I'm like, I don't know why I wrote Mark Callis. Like, was I drunk again? No,
No,
normally, no.
he was talking
Mhm.
about Mark Curtis,
Yeah.
but it sounded like you said Mark Callis.
Yeah. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. So apparently we are out of backstage announcers or backstage interviewers in Smoky Mountain because instead of having our regular backstage announcers, whether it be Brian Matthews or that other guy who does backstage announcers, are announcing, the Bullet has picked up another gig here in Smoky Mountain, and he's going to interview the Rock and Roll Express.
Thanks, boys. I really appreciate it. You're more than welcome. You know, it don't matter where Jimmy Cornette or the Heavenly Bodies go to. We're tired of them jacking people around, and we're going to be there to put an end to it.
You know, I can understand why my good friend Bob Armstrong had you warriors in his army, because you're fine men, and I appreciate you. You saved me. I'll tell you this, Jim Cornette, this mask will not come off. I repeat, will not come off till Bob Armstrong's name has been cleared.
The tag team showdown between the Bodies and the Steiners is next, fans, so don't go away. Stay right here.
Is this the match we're talking about? The match with the... Are
This is
we
it.
on?
This
Are we
is-
on?
this
Is
is
this
it.
the match we're
This is
talking
the
about?
one.
Wait a minute, Bob. You're ignoring, I guess. Wait a minute. This is the match we've been waiting to see, the match between the Heavenly Bodies and the Steiner brothers, but you've been ignoring our special guest here, Mr. Darryl Van Horne. Mr. Van Horne, can you tell us your expert analysis of the Steiner brothers?
Well, they're hardly what you might call mental giants, but they're pretty tough. Perhaps they'd like to get in the ring with my Egyptian prince when he shows up. Maybe then he might have someone to give him just a little competition.
Well, fans, I tell you now, that remains to be seen, but the big showdown took place between the Heavenly Bodies and the former World Wrestling Federation tag champions Rick and Scott Steiner. And we've seen the tape from SummerSlam and the attack on the Steiners by the Bodies over the past few weeks. But right now, let's see what happened when they met right here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
So how do you think the Bullet got his mask back?
Uh, he had a spare, I would
Oh,
assume.
there we go. And also, he announces, Jim Cornette will never get his mask. Jim Cornette already got his mask. We saw it earlier on this show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. He does just have the mask.
yeah. So hopefully for Bullet's sake, he has like 10 or 15 masks because, it doesn't look like the Smoky Mountain Board of Directors are in any hurry to bring back his friend Bob Armstrong. And, you know, maybe,
Yeah,
the Bullet should reach out to an old nemesis and get Kevin Sullivan to come in and protect him.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure we could come up with a reason for Kevin Sullivan to just start stabbing heels instead of baby faces. Um,
Yeah, he doesn't really need reasons to do stuff. I mean, in ECW, he just randomly like had a match where he teamed with Abdullah the Butcher, and then it ended in a disqualification, and then he just attacked Abdullah. He just
why
kind
the
of
hell
does
not?
whatever he wants. Yeah.
Um, don't ask me what the hell made me think about this when you mentioned ECW, but do you remember? I forget if this was One Night Stand or if this was WWE ECW. But Eugene randomly came out and cut a promo about how much he loved ECW
Yeah. And then the Sandman came out. That was
and
the
beat his
second one
ass.
night
Yes,
stand. Yeah.
yeah. I just remember it was the Hammerstein Ballroom, but I know they did a TV show from there too. Did you see that WWE just put up a whole bunch of dark matches, and one of them was Paul London and Brian Kendrick versus the FBI at the Hammerstein Ballroom?
No. Oh, that sounds awesome.
I just remember the story that they were going too fast, and Vince kept telling the referee to tell them to slow down. And the referee, he didn't get fired, but the referee got in a lot of shit because the wrestlers weren't listening to him.
Well, it's not his fault.
No, apparently he should have, I don't know, tripped them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So then we get the Steiners with Arnold the Bulldog versus the Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette in Barberville, Kentucky. Apparently over the weekend, Arnold was shoot fighting Mark Curtis and Dr. Tom Pritchard. And
Aw.
watching this match, I could believe it because they had him chained to the post and he kept jumping up into the ring and running into it during the match because the dog was not following the script of the match at all. And
Yeah.
when I towards the end of the match, like as I was watching, because at one point they do the spot where they sick the dog on Dr. Tom, and I'm thinking that's probably where he got bit. But then towards the end of the match, I swear I saw Mark Curtis's pant leg was a little torn up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that dog is shooting here on the show here. And hey,
Dogs don't know how to work.
and I'll be honest, like he's the dog of the Steiner brothers, so it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let me see here. The Heavenly Bodies threw Scott face first into a card table that was set up on the apron behind the referee's back. Del Rey hit the poon salt, but Rick broke it up. I wrote that as good as this match was, I was completely distracted by Arnold's attempts to get in the ring. Del Rey gave Mark Curtis a clothesline, so Scott gave him a Frankensteiner, and Cornette waylaid Scott with the racket but left it in the ring. Mark Curtis wakes up, counts 1, 2, and sees the racket, and he holds up his count, and he looks like O.J. Simpson trying on the glove. Like, oh my God, look at this. I'd like to think that OJ was watching Smoky Mountain. That's how he got the idea of how to react when you put the glove on. Maybe he watched Smoky Mountain from Rick Rubin's house. Do we have proof that those two
You
never hung
know,
out?
sure don't.
Yeah. Rick
Okay.
got the rack. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It just you're there. It was a little more like Mark Curtis does the count, and he does a 1, 2, and on the 3, his hand lands on the tennis racket. And it was just visually so hilarious because it was like 1, 2, ooh, a tennis racket. What is this come? Where did this come from? And it's just that Mark Curtis does not get enough credit for his body language. This was funny.
And spoiler alert, and hopefully you forget this by this point. This is not the only time that we have a similar finish to this in a big Smoky Mountain match.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, one of the biggest matches in Smoky Mountain history has this finish.
Oh
So just
wow.
tuck that away in the back of your mind for the future. So Rick got the racket and beat the shit out of the Heavenly Bodies for disqualification. Jim Cornette poured salt on the mat and then threw some in Rick's eyes. And eventually Arnold got his wish and got to chase the Heavenly Bodies away. And I note that according to Dave, both sides won 2, but neither won by pinfall. They were all disqualification finishes.
Yeah. That's I think that was how I had it. Hold on.
I think I saw 3-1 with the Steiners winning 3 times, but Dave says it was 2 to
No.
2.
The Steiners won in Hazard and Johnson City. The Bodies won in Knoxville and Barberville.
Mhm. There you go. And no one could just do a job on this show, so what the hell, right?
Yeah, that was I didn't get that, but what are you gonna do?
Well, though, hey, I know that we mentioned that, or at least I said that I thought that they should never have said that Arnold was a dog and it'd be this giant surprise that, they end up with a dog going after Cornette. But you got to think they had to sell a decent amount of Polaroid gimmicks with the Steiners and the dog in the ring.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to a big promo here with the Heavenly Bodies of Jim Cornette. And unlike the other stuff on the show, it lasts longer than 30 seconds. Let's go to that now.
There they are, fans. Jim Cornette, the Heavenly Body. What action right there against the Steiners, Jim.
The Steiner brothers, the big superstar Steiner brothers from the World Wrestling Federation. Was it any problem, guys, for you to murder them so easily?
They thought they were going to come to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, bring their big bad reputation, and take care of us. But we just showed them that it doesn't matter where it is in the country, whether you want to come to the Smoky Mountain area or the WWF. We don't have any problems with you. We handled them better than we handled anybody else on the street, didn't we?
You're exactly right, cuz. And what about that Snoopy dog? We kicked him right out of the house.
Let me just say this, Steiner brothers, you proved one thing. It takes a good team to beat you, but it don't take them long. And I'm going to talk about the Rock and Roll Express for a minute. I can't believe they are so consumed with jealousy, so eaten up with that green-eyed monster that they have had to follow the Heavenly Bodies all the way to the World Wrestling Federation. You see, we're up there beating up the big boys, getting in line for a World Tag Team title shot, and what happens? The Rock and Roll Express, after all these years of never wanting to go to the World Wrestling Federation, all of a sudden now they show up. And plain, pure, and simple, it's to keep the Heavenly Bodies from getting what we want up there, just like they're trying to keep us from getting what we want down here. But let me explain something to you, Rock and Roll. I got a little surprise for you because I made a few phone calls. I've made a few arrangements, and I've got a tag team coming to Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the next few weeks that's going to take care of Mr. Ricky Morton and Mr. Robert Gibson. This is a team, wait a minute, Bob Caudle, I'm fixed to tell you, not all of it, but some of it. This is a team that's so wild and so crazy, they've been banned, they've been fined, they've been suspended, they've been denied licenses, they've been denied access to hotels and motels, and probably incarcerated. They are so crazy, so insane, that nobody wants them around. Guys right up my alley. So they're coming to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and they're going to wrestle the Rock and Roll Express, or should I say they're going to fight the Rock and Roll Express, and they're going to keep them out of our hair so that we can go to the World Wrestling Federation, we can win the tag team title up there, and when we come back here, there'll be nothing left of Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, and we'll pick those belts up and cart them off.
Well,
what do you want?
You're talking about teams. What about the Bruises?
The Bruise Brothers.
Yeah,
the Bruise Brothers. I don't often have failures. I'm not even going to say it's a failure. It was just a disappointment. I brought them in here to do a job, and they didn't do the job correctly. And like all you rednecks out there can identify with, when you don't do the job correctly, you get demoted. And that's where the Bruise Brothers are right now. They're still on probation. They're sitting down there, and they're observing the top tag teams to learn what to do.
Jim, I tell you, I got a surprise for you right here.
What?
There's a tag team that has contacted Smoky Mountain Wrestling. They've asked for, and they've received a match against your guys right here next week on television to determine the #1 tag team contenders.
Everybody knows we're the #1 contenders. Who? What team is it? Who? What's the name?
I don't know that.
You're holding out on me, Caudle.
They didn't. I don't know.
What are you doing, surprising me out here on public television? Let me tell you something. I don't care who. I don't think that this team has any business coming in here to Smoky Mountain Wrestling where we dominate in our backyard and try to demand anything, much less being given a shot at us on television. But I'll tell you something right now. I keep in contact and I keep track of every top tag team in the sport of professional wrestling. If it was anybody important, I would know about it. I'd know about somebody making a move. Yeah. So come on next week, whoever it is, probably a couple of Johnny-come-latelys trying to make a name for themselves, we'll thump them off, and then we'll have bigger things going on in the future. And Bob Caudle, once again, it's been your pleasure.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Man, oh man, Trae, who do you think this team is that has contacted Smoky Mountain Wrestling to challenge the Heavenly Bodies for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles?
I don't know. I don't know who that team is. I don't know who the team coming in to face the Rock and Roll Express is.
You really not know either?
I don't.
Okay, then I will leave things go and not spoil it for you. I'll let you sit back and enjoy. All right. So the Rock and Roll Express have followed the Heavenly Bodies to the WWF because they're already starting to do the angle to build to the most random pay-per-view match in WWF history, as the Rock and Roll Express are going to wrestle the Heavenly Bodies at Survivor Series for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles, which is just preposterous in a good way.
It's a match that happened. Yeah, the Rock and Roll debuted on Raw this week.
Yeah, I know that they wrestled on All American Wrestling, which was, in case you don't know, it was like I don't even know how to compare this. Like it was basically the C show of the WWF at the time, and
Yeah, unlike
even then might be giving it too strong of a thing calling it the C show because like it was incredibly low importance. Like
unlike Saturday or Sunday morning or whatever.
it was Sunday at 12 noon.
Oh.
Yeah. Um. So they're disappointed by the Harris's. Well, I mean everyone is, but they brought the Harris's in to do a job, and I mean they did do a job. I mean we saw
They
it here on
did.
TV. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I I don't know why Cornette's so mad about them doing a job, but oh well. But Cornette says that it can't be anybody important who's coming in to wrestle the Heavenly Bodies next week, because if it was, he would know who the hell it is, which is perfect
Sure.
logical sense here. All
Yeah.
right, so then we get informed that we go to the local promos and we get told that there's going to be a four-way tag team match at one of the house shows for $5,000. And I gotta say, things must be not be going so well for Smoky Mountain because these same matches last year were for $10,000, and now this year they only were for $5,000.
Times is hard.
Yep, yep. Um, now I gotta ask, did they? Because you really pay attention to the local promos. Did they just air the same ones as last week? Because Primetime Brian Lee was cutting a promo, the Dirty White Boy interrupted again.
Uh, I didn't think it was. I didn't notice that it was. Very rarely has it been the exact same.
Mm-hmm. It happens once in a while, but yeah, it's not a regular thing. All right, so let's go to a show closing promo with Bob Caudle, Dutch, and Darryl Van Horne.
That's it. A look at our special Parade of Champions program for today. Now, next week,
Wait a minute, Caudle. I've sat here and I've talked about other wrestlers, and we've listened to ramblings and the verbal effluvia you spew about other wrestlers, but I want to talk about the reason I'm here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I've come from the University of Cairo, and I will be bringing in a 7-foot-tall, 350-pound Egyptian prince. Now, I just got off the phone with my lawyers from my corporate officers up on the corner of Libido and Cleavage in New Jersey earlier today. They have assured me that the palms have been greased. We've dealt with the consulate. We've dealt with the embassy. It's almost time to bring my prince in. It takes a lot of time and talent. I have the lawyers to do it. In fact, they once got a sodomy charge that gets me busted down to tailgating. However, everybody here needs to pay attention to what I've got going on. This man is a Renaissance man, and he will change pro wrestling as we know it. I will do whatever it takes to bring him in, even if it means we have to bump off some of these politicians around here to get him into the country. And in fact, I think I know just the people to take care of that.
You're just shaking your head in agreement.
Well, I
Dutch.
agree with everything it says. Fans, tune in next week. We're going to see the Heavenly Bodies against a team to be announced. We are going to see Bobby Blayze versus Chris Candido for the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title. Beat the Champ returns next week, and Tammy Fitz makes her reappearance on Smoky Mountain Wrestling next week's with Tammy's tips.
All right, fans, that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
You think poor Bob Caudle understood anything that Darryl Van Horne was saying?
I hope not.
Bob Caudle's such
Get
a nice man.
uh,
On the
get
corner of Libido and Cleavage.
the sodomy charge busted down to tailgating is an all-time fucking great line.
Yes. It's too bad he doesn't last because, yeah, I think he could have matched Cornette wit for wit here.
Yeah,
But oh
I
well.
was just thinking he's like the one. He's got that kind of cornet energy.
Yep. I don't know where did he even come from. Like I was he just a fan who got brought in like here, or was he actually managing at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. This is like the first the first thing I've ever heard of him doing in wrestling.
Mhm. Let's see if there's anything I can find here. The problem is it's always hard to find in-depth stuff about managers. Like there's no manager version of Cage Match, sadly. According to
Yeah.
the always reliable Wikipedia, Mitchell wrestled in the Carolinas and in Virginia before joining Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Huh.
And
Okay.
apparently he took the Darryl Van Horne name from Jack Nicholson's character in The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. Oh boy. I'm just reading like the first paragraph about Jim Mitchell and Smoky Mountain is reminding me of some of the tremendous stuff that we have to see here coming up.
Okay. Okay. I was just reading Father James Mitchell's Wikipedia page. Mitchell was fired by Jim Cornette after hearing that Smoky Mountain Wrestling was going out of business due to a family problem with Cornette. Mitchell said he dialed all the production crew when he was drunk dialing and eventually was yelled at on the phone by Cornette.
Yep. So apparently I got my stories about Mitchell mixed up because I know he does a promo on TV after Prince Karras gets the boot that was very Paul Heyman-esque in the winking at the smart fans thing, and I thought that was why he got let go, but no, it was because he was drunk dialing all the Smoky Mountain employees about whether or not the company was going out of business.
That's a great that's a great point there. James Mitchell is the Paul Heyman of Jim Cornette's.
Yeah. That's just hilarious. By the way, I mentioned before we talk about what else is happening in older wrestling, I mentioned the Smoky Mountain newsletter that I was able to procure uh, a few copies of. One of them was the issue that came out after Smoky Mountain closed up shop, and in it they had a bunch of wrestlers and fans talking about memories of Smoky Mountain, and one of them was our old friend White Lightning, Tim Horner.
Yeah.
So
He was
I'm
not
just gonna
happy.
read. No, I'm just gonna read what he says. Keep in mind, this is 1996 when he's writing this. First of all, let me say hello to all the wrestling fans who have supported me throughout my career. You know, all two of them. I can't tell you
Both
what
of
it
them.
means to have this. I can't tell you what it means to have the support night after night. The wrestling business has had a tremendous change since I first started wrestling in 1979. Yada yada yada. This brings me to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. SMW is one of the bright spots in the wrestling industry. It gave the fans what they wanted to see at an affordable price. Wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it, not like the bigger promotions. That's what made us different. I say us because I layered a lot of the groundwork for Smoky Mountain. And if you recall, from 1991 until 1994, Smoky Mountain was not only growing at the events, but in popularity. SMW's three-man operation turned into a one-man show. What a racket that turned out to be. After 3 years of being different, Smoky Mountain decides to have a working relationship with the WWF. Well, one individual decided that. No one else wanted to. This turned out to be the beginning of the end. If you currently watch the WWF, you will see the only person that the working relationship with Smoky Mountain and the WWF was beneficial for. Not only did the wrestlers who were working for Smoky Mountain suffer, but you, the fans, also suffered. This person's enormous ego was the downfall of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Trying to deal with this ego plus a lot of front office disagreements was leading me towards physical violence. I decided that it was not worth it. I then decided to leave the company. The rest is history. Yeah. So he tries to bury Cornette, and of course, even even Jim Cornette's detractors could tell you how full of shit Tim Horner is right here.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Oh Lord, good old White Lightning. We still have what this is what October. We still have 9 months of Tim Horner to go.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
although like he's not, I don't think he's going to be on much because I know he wrestles Prince Karras. But let me see here because he goes away for a little bit. Because Cornette mentioned like he took Horner off TV and just made him, an office worker for a while. And then that's when the blow up ended up happening. Um, let me see here because I know he's gone in July because it was right before um no whatchamacallit, not Super Bowl of Wrestling, but the Night of the Legends. So yeah, I guess he wrestles more than you'd think because he's kind of well after November, after Thanksgiving Thunder, we don't see him again until April. And even then we don't
Oh,
really see him in April.
right.
Oh Lord, that should be fun to make fun of Tim Horner, but under a different gimmick.
Can't wait.
Yes. Alrighty. So before we finish things up, because this was a highlight show, so we made it remarkably quick compared to our normal length shows. So before we finish up, we tell you what else has happened in the world of wrestling, because I can tell you October 16th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face, but this gives you some context as to know what else is happening in the world of wrestling. So the big news is that Macho Man Randy Savage was on Radio WWF this week and ripped Hulk Hogan a new asshole.
Oh.
Um, yeah, it was primarily due to the fact that, Hogan and his wife, when Elizabeth left Randy Savage, Hogan and his wife basically went and got Elizabeth and brought her to their home. And Savage was, as you can imagine, not happy about that. Um, and Savage just used this as an excuse to go off on him. People did raise their eyebrows because this is a WWF promoted show, and this makes it look like Vince McMahon is essentially allowing this on his show when during Hogan's recent pub for Mr. Nanny, Hogan went out of his way to not bury the WWF. There are thoughts that this may lead to Hogan negotiating with New Japan about doing more dates or even going to WCW.
That'll never happen.
No, never. Terry Gordy will not be back for the All Japan Tag Team Tournament this year, as he's still recovering from his OD. He actually doesn't come back to wrestling until April of '94, and that Dr. Death will be teaming with Big Bubba Rogers instead on the upcoming tag tournament.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah,
we, Mhm.
he never goes back to All Japan. I don't think.
I'll be honest, I didn't look too closely at it. But then, in a moment that we talked about last week on this very show, Sabu was at a WWF TV taping doing a dark match tryout against Scott Taylor and did not look good at all.
No, he did not.
No. Hey, Trace, so we've managed to wrap things up in like an hour and 10 minutes. I That just doesn't seem right.
It's gonna be a record.
I know. It almost just feels like we need to come up with something to talk about.
A boot.
Yes. What the hell is that on the boot? Um,
Uh,
but by the way, Terry Gordy does go back to All Japan. It looks like he does a tour in July of '94,
oh,
teaming with Richard Slinger and Steve Williams.
well, that checks out.
He also teams with the Eagle. Who the hell is the Eagle? George Hines,
Uh, yeah,
Jackie
tag team
Fulton.
part, tag team partner of the Patriot.
Yes. Well, in Smoky Mountain, he was Jackie Fulton, tag team brother of Bobby Fulton, as the
Oh,
Fantastics. Yes. And also Kurt Beyer, whoever the hell that is.
that is the Destroyer's son.
Ah, I mean, the name makes sense. Apparently, he teamed with Kurt Beyer in Kurt Beyer's last match ever. The end of his career was July 28th, 1994, after debuting January 9th, 1993. Obviously,
Yeah,
he had a long career.
I wonder if he just if he got hurt or if he just decided that it wasn't him, wasn't for him, because they had like The Destroyer had his retirement match in like July of '93, and of course, the son was there for that. And then they acted like he was gonna, continue the legacy. Like, or they probably even thought about, having him do the mask, but then he
Mhm.
didn't stay in the business for that much longer, and don't know why. Kurt Buyer, if you're listening, and why wouldn't you be? Get in touch with us.
Yeah. We can talk about you wrestling a Mori in your next to last match. Actually, his last match, he came out of retirement for a one-off in 2003, where he lost the IAW television title to Andy Cheen in South Bend, Indiana. Now, the
Oh,
issue with that, and I'm not one to sit here and be like, oh, that's bullshit. But when did he win the IAW TV title in order for him to lose it to Andy Cheen?
maybe he won it in a shoot, so that's not on Cage Match.
Yeah.
Check Share Dog.
Sierra Dog, not Sure Dog.
No, no, Share Dog, like the Sonny and Cher.
They say we're young and we don't know. We won't find out until we go. Well, I don't know if all that's true, 'cause you got me and baby, I got you.
Babe,
Babe, papa, papa, I got you,
I got
babe.
you, babe.
Uh, I think we just turned off whatever listeners we had left on this show.
Okay, take it home.
All right. Hey, Johnny Curtis showed up on NXT this week and challenged Lexis King to a match next week. But this makes no
Why?
sense. It says JDC's return to WWE, but they show him coming out to the Fandango music. It's that's not JDC's theme song. JDC isn't Fandango. I mean, he is Fandango, but he's not Fandango. All right.
Sure.
Yes. Well, I mean, like when fucking Ash by Elegance was on the show, when she ran in to try to help Jordan Grace win the Impact or the NXT title against Roxanne Perez, they called her Ash by Elegance, not Dana Brooke.
Uh, Cole did say during the Royal Rumble that Joe Hendry beat Nick Nemeth. I'm surprised that
Yes.
he didn't at least note the name that WWE viewers would know Nick Nemeth by.
I'm still like I don't know what really amazes me more at this point, that WWE has a working relationship with TNA, or that Michael Cole has referenced many things that have happened in other companies.
The WWE has a working relationship with Noah.
Almost is still floating over here from the Pacific. You know,
I wish they would have left him. I was enjoying almost in Noah.
I, like that's the thing, like, they're bringing him back. Like, are they bringing him back to actually use him? Like, cause it's
See,
not
I
like,
thought
oh, mhm.
they were bringing him back. I thought for sure he'd be in the Royal Rumble, and he wasn't.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe the WWE Noah relationship is already soured after, 1 month. Like I said,
Maybe they
I guess
just maybe
they, they, they have had a little bit more of a relationship, but yeah, I mean, they've never sent anybody over there for an extended period before.
maybe they just didn't want him hanging out with Yoshitatsu.
I mean, they heard Yoshitatsu's commentary from that Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, yeah.
Poor Yoshitatsu. He breaks his neck on a Styles Clash, and then he takes it on AJ and ruins the commentary of a show. And that was also like, wasn't he teaming with Billy Gunn? Which is when, like,
Yes.
That was when Billy Gunn randomly started doing New Japan. This obviously well before Daddy Ass, and it was like New Japan is randomly booking Billy Gunn. Why?
They were the
Yeah.
Bullet Club hunters.
Yes. I gotta tell you, I gotta love all the New Japan stables, all 507 of them, you know.
Yeah.
Oh God. Was it who was it? Was it Yoshihashi that tried to run to the ring one time for a save and tripped and went head first
Yes.
into the apron?
Yes. They brought that up this last year because it was like the September show in Kobe. And then
Mhm.
this year, that was the show where he challenged David Finlay for the global title, and the whole build and video package was about that moment because it was in the same building where he tripped and ate shit.
Okay. I mean, I guess WWE, after Titus O'Neil tripped and fell under the ring that time, they brought him out for the next year's Royal Rumble just to specifically not have him trip and slide under the ring.
Yeah, I don't know.
All
It's
right.
just the Japanese way. It's just like, yeah, it's a thing that happened, and I was embarrassed, and now I have to redeem myself.
Yeah. All right. So before we get going, you want to tell people about the other podcast you do behind closed doors?
Yeah, it's the Oh My Godcast, ohmygodcast.com. We're covering 1993 ECW. And we'll be continuing our coverage of NWA Blood Feast Fest.
Good old Blood Feast Fest.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this week. A nice short show. So all this you people complaining about us going 2 hours, well, now listen to our damn show. But
Yep.
thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.